Glide is the story of what happened when I decided to take time out from endless achieving. Like I had swum for Australia when I was a teenager, and then I'd hosted my own TV shows and I hosted my own radio shows and I'd written many books. But I just was always caught in this cycle of loving what I did or loving the challenge that I'd set myself, and then either, getting sick or injured or burning out or tipping myself into panic. And so I decided that I would stop and actually try to sort out what I called trouble with my thinking. And so Glide is the story of what I discovered. And I discovered, I had this Miss Never Enough in my head. It was always kind of, whatever I achieved, it was never good enough. And I discovered that quite a lot of people have that voice in their head. So I thought that Glide might be helpful for more than just me. I used the word can-do kindness because that was the only way that I could describe what the DY ladies had done. And kindness sort of seems weak sometimes. And so can do, there was nothing weak about what they did. They were kind, but they were also active. And so that was what I called it for a long time. And then I learned sort of the official word for can-do kindness. And again, it was a word that has been so maligned, I think, in our society. It's sort of associated with weakness, with kind of soft-bellied liberalism, with kind of self-indulgence. And so again, I was thinking, well, shall I use that in my book or shall I just stick with can-do kindness? But then I decided, look, we really need to just kind of embrace these words. Like the Buddhists consider this word like an absolute, like top of the line, kind of an immeasurable in the Buddhist canon. And the word is compassion. And compassion is empathizing with the pain that you're feeling or the pain that another person is feeling, and then enabling courage and encouraging them through, like an encouragement and high action. So that was exactly what the DY ladies did. Like, compassion is not a weak term. Compassion is actually really tough. It's really tough to empathize with how you're feeling. Most of us will never do it. Most of us, bite our fingernails, go running, drink wine, like do anything other than feel what we're feeling. So it's actually a very, very powerful practice. And the more that I practice it for myself, and the more that I practice it, say, with my son and with my husband, with people that I love, particularly when they're stressed, the more I have come to see just what a superpower it is. My top Glide lines for taking the panic out of modern living, I would start with mindfulness always. It is a skill. And it is a skill that doesn't require a whole lot of effort. It's certainly a lot easier than swimming 6Ks, twice a day to get to the Olympics, I can tell you that. But what mindfulness does is it puts you in the driver's seat, if you like. Most of us are on autopilot, whereas mindfulness cultivates awareness of what it's like to be sitting here on a rainy day after all of that hot weather. What it's like to feel the clothing against your skin, what it's like to be thinking the thoughts that you're thinking, and whether or not those thoughts are useful. And when we have that sort of awareness, it's like a really good friend. Like when you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. But most of the time we feel as though we're out of control because we're on autopilot and we don't realize how habitual our actions are. So mindfulness to me is the number one skill to learn if you want to glide. Number two is compassion, because sometimes when you're aware, or quite often, if you're like me, you're going to find that you're just an imperfect human being and that perhaps you're not thinking as skillfully as you possibly can. Perhaps you're judging people when you shouldn't. And so to bring compassion to that and to realize that, wow, we're not always perfect. And wow, sometimes we will, because of our fears, because of our anxiety, we will think and do things that aren't as perfect as we would like them to be. So compassion for that and the opportunity to actually go, okay, let's take a deep breath, let's learn from what we just did, perhaps apologize for what just happened and keep going. Compassion's really important. The third skill that I would say that is really helpful to cultivate is curiosity. I think it's a superpower as well. I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh who said that when curiosity is present, fear isn't. If you think about the quality of when you've been curious, curiosity is an open experience, whereas fear is contracted. When we're fearful, we don't want to move, we're worried about everything we do. When we're curious and we're wondering, we can wonder about ourselves and why we did what we just did or said what we just said. We can wonder about another human being and think, wow, I wonder what it is, why it is that they think like that, even if it's really different to me. Rather than judge them, we can actually get interested. And I think that opens up a whole lot of possibilities. And finally, I think to glide through the 21st century, I think joy is really important to cultivate. And even now, just saying that, you might think, well, what's there to be joyful about? You know, the planet's in trouble, like all sorts of things are going wrong. Like, yeah, that is true. At the same time, there is the feeling of, you know, rain on your face, you know, when you haven't felt it for a long time. There is, you know, a beautiful sunset. And there's also the feeling that you get when you do that thing that you didn't think you could do. That's really joyful and it's satisfying. And the more that we can tap into that joy and the good things in life, then it strengthens us and it allows us to hold the difficult things, because we know that, you know, in the next moment there may be something joyful that arises. So we can hold the tough and the difficult stuff because we know that there's other good stuff around. Hi, I'm Lisa Forrest, and I'm the author of a book called Glide, Taking the Panic Out of Modern Living, and it's in good bookshops now.